In California, good morning, and wherever you are, thank you for taking time to join us to talk about the critical nature of the determining decade ahead of us. And I'm delighted today to host a conversation with policy leaders here in California at a state level and doing work directly on the ground in our communities. And it's really wonderful to follow that panel with Mike and Alexandra Cousteau. Truly inspiring to think of the challenges ahead. And I really want to follow Mike's tone here of thinking about what we can do. I think it's easy to be overwhelmed at the conservation challenges that confront us in protecting our air, our land, our water, addressing climate change, and putting it all together can feel overwhelming at times. But I think what we'd like to do today is to really talk about what we have to get done in the next decade to make the planet livable for people, for the environment. And if you think about it, what's really changed in this moment, what's changed in this decade, is that we have more science that really underscores the urgency of the problem that we are confronting today. Nature Conservancy is very active in combating plastics waste throughout the environment, protecting freshwater resources, as Sandy Matsumoto just noted from our freshwater program perspective, protecting really the land and waters upon which all life depends, and we take that mission very seriously. And what has changed is the urgency, I think, and that the nature problems that are particularly identified often with the Nature Conservancy's work are now people problems. How do we coexist together? How do we protect this planet from 1.5-degree temperature rise that would have potentially devastating consequences, especially in the equatorial regions across the planet and well beyond that for fish and wildlife and people. And so I am really delighted today to bring you this conversation with former Governor Jerry Brown, foundation leader and community activist Dolores Huerta, and California's newest U.S. Senator Alex Padilla, who will be joining us from Washington. So I'd like to start now with Governor Brown. Governor Brown, welcome. Thank you for making time to join us today.
Tune in and also be a part of things.
Yes. Governor, you've long been identified as an advocate for the environment as the longest serving governor from your tenure in the 70s to your immediate recent tenure in that office. What does Earth Day mean for you?
Well, Earth Day is a recognition that as human beings, we dwell on this planet called Earth and that we share many things in common. And while we are very divided by religion and ethnicity and background and just the way we live and see the world, and yet we share the atmosphere, the soil, the whole natural pattern of which we're only one small but obviously very important part. So Earth Day is a way to rise above the daily routine, the ordinary perception, which is very parochial, as it should be, limited to the place where we are, our own home, our school, our office, depending on what the case is, and to rise above that and see on this planet with this atmosphere above, which is quite limited, and the soil below, and we're in between all that, and we can disrupt it, and we are disrupting it. And so Earth Day is a way to recall that this environmental awareness hasn't been around forever. It's relatively recent, and it's very important. So we start thinking hard about carbon emissions, about species extinction, about our habitat, our water, our air, all of that. So Earth Day is a time to reflect.
As you think about that challenge before us, Governor, what strikes you as the most urgent challenges that we at the Nature Conservancy need to be confronting in a meaningful way?
Well, for the Nature Conservancy, I would say it's to raise awareness and educate the people of California particularly the powerful people, that the habitat is subject to human impact and modification, and that impact now is more negative than positive, and that we're affecting species, whether they be oak trees or butterflies or deer or other fauna and flora. And all of that is part of our inheritance as creatures. And we need to rise to the occasion, look around, see what's going on, understand better the science, and then start taking the action, which is preserving, as Governor Newsom said, 30% of the land by 2030. That's a good start. E.O. Wilson, as the great scientist from Harvard, working on habitat and species extinction, what have you, he says the Earth needs to preserve 50% of the land mass. So somewhere between 30 and 50, we ought to put our sights right now, and we're not there yet. In fact, the world, to quote a poem of getting and spending, we lay waste our patrimony, and we got to wake up. So it's not just about going to the grocery store or buying a car or watching television or this computer interface here. We got to wake up to the fact that we're in nature, and being in nature, we have to understand the rules of nature, the laws of nature, and right now we are playing with those laws in a way to drive species to extinction, to drill out water, to pump out water that's been under the ground for a very long time and cannot be replenished by the rains that we can expect at the rate of our current pumping. So whether it's water, whether it's soil and how we treat it with too many chemicals, or whether we're planting more than we should, all of that is part of the story of nature. And that story is very much submerged in the routines of our daily lives and the routine of media. We have to capture enough of the flow of information that we put nature right at the center. And that is a tall order. We're not even close to that because so much of our lives are plastic and manufactured stuff. And the connection between trees and species and butterflies and animals and air and water, that is very much in the background, even though it is the total envelope in which we find ourselves.
Governor, since leaving office, you've headed north in the Sacramento Valley, a bit up in Colusa County. Could you share a bit about your work on the ground there to really document the resources there and the natural legacy of the lands that have been in your family? I think that's a pretty meaningful connection that is inspiring, I think, to us, for people to have a sense of awareness of the lands and resources around them and what they can do to steward those resources for the future.
Well, first, in addition to stewarding the land, it's also to learn the history. And this land, for thousands of years, was inhabited by people who had come from Asia, maybe as long as 15,000 years ago. How long they were in Colusa County, I don't know, but thousands of years. And those people, of course, were removed forcibly, and their descendants still live here, the Cortina Rancheria, and in the Colusa tribe in the city of Colusa. But the artifacts are here. I found obsidian, arrowheads. I know two villages right here on the land here. There are the grinding stones and all the evidence of that long-standing civilization, far more longer than ours, and yet they passed. Okay, then what came next? Well, pioneers came, various Spaniards and the Americans around just before the gold rush and after. And right here where I am, there was the hotel, the Mountain House Hotel. It's a stagecoach stop. The stage, the Leesville-Ladoga stage came by every day. People would get fresh horses. Some would stay all night in the hotel. My great-grandfather was an innkeeper. My grandmother was the youngest of his 8 children. They all lived here. And there were many families. By the way, in the mountain house, we had a barber shop. That was the Veneto post office. And there was a bar. And there was a place for people to share meals. Many, many families. There was a school just around the corner here, around the bend. And there was a cemetery about a mile and a half away. All that swept away. I'm the only family. Well, we have one neighbor living a mile and a half away. Other than that, there's nobody for many miles. And it's all been replaced by cattle grazing. But there was a time when this was wheat farming, chickens, pigs, sheep, families, a vibrant community life. And that all went out, probably with the coming of the car, with other changes in the world economy, probably the depletion of the soil, maybe the lack of sufficient rain for what they were trying to do. Whatever it was, the white man came, or the European came, and the European left. And now we have mostly his cows that come on the land. And as a matter of fact, they come on usually around November, and they leave in about May. Of course, they're taking the cows off earlier than that right now for the last few weeks because it's so dry. There's no grass very little grass to speak of. And there it is. So that's the history. And as far as the fauna, very few deer, even though this is called Veneto, which means deer lodge. I've only seen in probably the last 5 years 4 deer. Now, we do have elk. We have a very beautiful herd of elk that I don't say we have them. They have the land. They wander through here, and in the surrounding area, we have probably 50, 60 elk. So that's happening. There are coyotes. There are lots of other animals here. Certainly rattlesnakes around, ground squirrels, and lots of oak trees. But what you see is that on the mountains right now, the oaks, not very far from the valley here, just up 100 feet or so, are very dried out. They have not bringing their leaves on, at least not yet. Maybe they won't at all. And there's no younger trees. There's only old trees. And how long these old trees will last, oak trees, almost all oak. I probably have 2 pine trees on my whole ranch here. So there's a lot going on. I've just planted some wild, some native plants, fiddleweed and poppies and lupin and several other varieties. They came up. Of course, the weeds that are brought here by the Europeans, those weeds are remarkable. If someone could genetically engineer the weed vitality, that would be something, because the weeds are very much in evidence. But luckily enough, poppies came through, and the fiddleweed came through too. Now, the cows don't like fiddleweed, but it is a native plant. So we have lipa, we have other kinds of plants. So there's probably 200 different varieties, and I hope to be able to catalog all those and make those in some way available on my ranch, maybe building some kind of building that would make it all available. I'm very much interested in all the aspects of the land. The geology is being studied by the UC Berkeley geologists. They've been out here probably 50 times. They've drilled holes to check the water, and it looks as dry as they've ever seen it. We have a weather station here. We pick up the wind and the moisture and the temperature. So we're studying the land, the geology, the archaeology, the fauna, the flora, and there it is. And I can't give you too much more. Oh, and then I have about 110 olive trees. Some are here from my great-grandfather's time. Most I've brought in just in recent years, and we've had 4 harvests, and the trees are looking pretty, look a little haggard right now. And I've asked someone from the UC Davis Olive Center to come by, and he'll be by here in about 10 days, and we're going to look and see, what do these trees need? Is it water? Is it some other kind of amendment? But we're looking. So there's the cultivation of the trees, there's the planting of native species, and then there's just my study and understanding of what is this particular land that, by pure serendipity, has stayed in my family since 1878.
Yeah. Well, that's exciting, and thanks for continuing that work. And I think it really is helpful to remember our place in how we have kind of
I will
altered this.
I'll give you one observation of just the last few days. We have Freshwater Creek, which is probably 100 yards from where I'm now sitting. I can see it out the window. And in Freshwater Creek, there are turtles. There's some fish too, modest fish. I mean, not pretty small for the most part. Anyway, it's not a great creek, but it hasn't dried up yet. So I noticed these turtles like to sit on the embankment. The other day I saw five. This morning, as I was uh, walking, I saw four turtles. And when I walk, it's a bridge over the creek. As I walk over that bridge, it doesn't make too much noise just from my walking. And those turtles all jump in the water and dive down so you can't see them. So what I learned is that turtles can, I don't think they could see me, or maybe they could, but they can hear me. Somehow seeing, hearing, smelling something, the turtles got the idea they had to get out of plain view. So maybe some of your listeners at the Nature Conservancy can tell me what particular skill or attributes of a turtle allows them to take action and respond to my being probably 50 yards away from them. Maybe it was only 40 yards. So they're pretty good.
Well, we will definitely circle back and explore that with you. I think
Do they
I
have
want
good
to.
ears? Do they have some form of hearing that is highly, or is it their sight? I don't know, but there it is. So that
Well,
will
look
be
forward to
my nature question for the Nature Conservancy.
All right. We appreciate that, and definitely we'll get back to you on that. And I do want to just quickly note, Governor, as inspiring as the action is on the ground, I think I want to thank you as well for your work in leading this California China Institute as an example in climate action and protecting forests and landscapes globally and engaging China. Can you just share a bit about your aspirations for that work?
Well, my goal is to research and uh, train and have dialogues with Americans, of course, and Chinese. And that may not seem significant, but given the current mood in Washington and perhaps in Beijing, I can't speak for them, there is a rising Cold War uh, sense, rising hostility, Cold War preparations, uh, the denunciation of the ills of China, the wrongs, the misdeeds, with not a parallel acknowledgement of our own particular ills, of which we know there are many. But we're in a situation now where even on climate, John Kerry went there and they had a good exchange. They put out a statement, but not a lot of emphasis on cooperation. It was more parallel statements. There was one mention about cooperation on the super pollutants like methane, which are very important, soot and methane, to get that under control and reduced and eliminated to the maximum degree. But in general, the ability to cooperate. There's a story in the New York Times about the solar products of China, which we are still very, very dependent, because they're 90% of the solar and wind, that they're being made under labor conditions that we would find unacceptable. So, in order to demand and require other parts of the world, including China, to be as good as us, I want to put good in quotation marks, we may not be able to have all that much collaboration. So it's very much an open question of what are we going to do with China? Will we have a war? Will we decouple? Will they have their internet? We have our internet. Will we go to our separate silos? Will we have some connection? I know that President Biden is trying to keep open the discussion on climate. I thought the discussion in the New York Times today was aimed at even reducing that pathway of communication. I know John Kerry is very committed. So we have these large planetary issues, the climate, obviously, but also the virus, the danger of nuclear proliferation or nuclear accident, the dangers of cyber interference, and what artificial intelligence and the militarization of space. All these are planetary issues. They're not parochial. They're not about Oakland or Sacramento or Scranton, Pennsylvania. This is planetary stuff. And China and the US and everybody else on the planet are vulnerable. And therefore, we have a common or planetary interest, which would mandate, which would demand, if we're going to be successful as a species, to cooperate. But so far, cooperation is held hostage to what are called now core values. And we have core values that are very different from the Chinese core values. They have a party system, the Communist Party system. We have our own capitalist type of politics, and we know how it works. It's working right in our very eyes. And we think our system is something that China has to accept more of. We're not saying they have to do the whole thing, but we want them to be more like us. And if they don't, then we're going to sanction them. And we have lots of issues. We land in different seas, the freedom of the seas. So we have a lot of stuff that we're in dispute about. So where the climate is going to come in all that, I don't know. But I do say that UC Berkeley and Tsinghua University, Chinese and American scholars, and representative of states and cities, provinces, that we will work together, and we're going to hold the fort, as it were, of cooperation, while the big people in Washington, Beijing, I think they're going to be shouting at one another. Hopefully they won't be shooting, although I don't rule that out as a possibility. So yes, the California-China Institute has big ambitions on what is perhaps the most important political topic of our era. That is, how do China and the U.S. live on this planet Earth together? So that's what I want to carve out a piece of that overall problem and work as best I can to create more understanding, less hostility, and lower the temperature and up the collaboration efforts.
Well, Governor, on this Earth Day, thank you for your continued inspiration and your work both on the ground and helping us understand the linkages between people and sustainability and the planet and beyond that in a global sense as well. And we appreciate your continued work and leadership and look forward to joining you across these challenges in the years and months ahead here. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Good. We'd like to get you folks from the Nature Conservancy, come on up to the ranch and see a little bit of nature, if you don't mind.
We will definitely honor that. We'll be in your backyard. Yes, thank you for that.
I have to warn you, when I asked my father, did you come up here as a child? He said, no. I didn't. I said, did you like it? No. I said, why not? He said, too hot and too many rattlesnakes. So, but
all right. There are battles everywhere.
But we have solar collectors. We have air conditioning. We're in a much better place.
Got it. All right. Thank you very much for that. We look forward to circling back with you on turtles and beyond here. Okay, and I do want to turn now to Dolores Huerta, who is really just a legend in our time, and as a community activist that has seen so much of change in California in the last 60 years. As Dolores is the founder and director of the Dolores Huerta Foundation. She is also a founder of United Farm Workers Union. Dolores, thank you for joining us today on this Earth Day.
No, thank you very much for inviting me. And I just want to thank Governor Brown for all the work that he's done and being a leader in the issues of climate change, and also for naming the Cesar Chavez as a paid holiday in the state of California. As you know, Caesar was very committed to the environmental issues. And by the way, he died on April the 23rd, which was very fitting because that was very close to Earth Day, because all of the work that Cesar did. And his last fast that he fasted for 36 days, a water only fast, to bring attention to the issue of pesticides in our food. And he did that to bring attention to the public. And also, I want to thank the governor. I don't know if he's still listening or not, but also for naming Dolores Huerta Day. And 4 other states have followed suit, and now we have in several of those states Dolores Huerta Day of Service, and it's dedicated to people doing something to clean up our environment. So, and it's wonderful to be here because I know we have so many challenges right now.
And that is quite an honor. On your birthday, Governor Newsom reiterated April 10th as Dolores Huerta Day in California. Can you tell us a bit just about your perspective of the issues that you think about as we celebrate Earth Day?
Well, since I am talking here from the Central Valley, I'm here in Kern County. And the San Joaquin Valley of California is only one of 4 or 5 different places where they're very unique in terms of we have the Mediterranean climate where we can grow all of this wonderful food. So that we are the food baskets for the state of California and for many parts of the world. And so this is a very unique place where we live and where we work. And yet we know that climate change is threatening many of the agricultural productions that are taking place in this area, and also the whole issue of water, which is a very big issue also. Luckily, a couple of years ago, we did get a bill signed, SB 200, to clean up the contaminated water that we had, not only in the San Joaquin Valley, but throughout the whole state of California. So that was a plus in terms of getting our water cleaned up. But we know that, again, in Kern County here, where I sit, we are also number 1 in terms of the fossil fuels, because most of the petroleum in California does come from Kern County. But ironically enough, we are also number 1 in terms of green energy. Unfortunately, a lot of the green energy jobs that are come out of here, they're like temporary jobs, and they're not the long-lasting jobs like what they have in the oil industry. But we do know that fossil fuels are a big issue, and as we're approaching this point where we have this horrific global warming that is really threatening the existence of us as humans on this planet, and of course the animal species that you were talking about earlier, that know we have to do something really, really quickly. And in Kern County, our Board of Supervisors just voted to fast track the permits that they can have for fracking and for oil drilling, even though they know that the oil here is going to be depleted. It's going to be depleted in 30 years. And so what we really need right now, I believe, is to have a transition plan. And that will include some of the oil companies. And I think some of them, they know that their future is, you might say, it's going to disappear because oil is going to disappear. But possibly some of those oil companies would be willing to get together on a transition team. Now, this also really affects our economy here because we have so many thousands of people that work in the oil industry. So you've got our labor unions here that are, of course, are supporting the petroleum companies, okay? So this is kind of the political climate that we're in right now, but we do know that we do have a crisis and that it's got to be addressed.
Yes, thank you for that. And you've been extremely active, and we've been working with you in Sacramento in advancing the human right to water, in working on the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act with the Community Water Center that you do a lot of work with. Can you talk a little bit about how we can align these values of protecting groundwater and safe drinking water for people in the Central Valley?
Well, I think it's got to be a priority. And right now we have a lot of, as we know, because of what happened with the decision on George Floyd yesterday. That a lot of folks are really focused right now in the terms of policing, on the terms of racial justice, gender justice, but we also kind of have to make sure that we do not get the issues of global warming and climate change, that they don't get lost in the shuffle, and that somehow we are able to get everyone to also focus on these issues. And so every individual can just think, okay, how can I make my carbon footprint smaller? What is it that I can do? And so we can get kind of that civic engagement that we need. Pretty much like when the environmental movement started, that this is everybody's issue. It's not a special issue or a special interest issue. This is something that each and every one of us has to be involved in to make sure that we can save planet Earth, I like to say, because all of our other causes are very, very important. But if we don't survive on planet Earth, really, what difference does it make?
Yes, absolutely, right? That's those challenges are getting more and more evident in front of us. I think, what is your hope in terms of seeing alignment in some of the issues that we're working on together, and safe, clean drinking water and protecting the environment, and how we raise people's consciousness to act faster on these issues? And how do you feel about that as somebody really that's inspiring action on the ground and really across the valley, really across the country?
Well, I think that number one, at the state legislature, we have to adopt and continue the work that Governor Brown started in terms of enhancing what we call as the Green New Deal, right? We know that many of our legislators are you might say, fearful of the power of the oil industry, and of course the labor unions that attach themselves to the petroleum industry. So we have to be able to reach out to those legislators and tell them that they do have a constituency that is there with them, that we all need to work together, because again, this idea of global warming it's going to affect each and every one of us. So we do have some of the legislators that are very hesitant to take the big steps forward to vote on the issues of fracking and the production of the petroleum industry. So, all of us as constituents, we do have a voice, and we need to raise our voices and let those legislators know that we are there for them, so that they can have the courage. We just recently had a Senator Scott Weiner's bill that was just, I think it was not voted out recently, when he had a bill in terms of trying to stop some of the fracking that is going on.
One of the things that I have found most really inspiring in looking at your work over these years, and on behalf of a number of causes around civil rights and equality and equal treatment and action on the ground, has been how you inspire the next generation. I just see young people kind of radiate to your work and your message, and I'm curious, what makes you most optimistic about the future? What do you feel out there in your work?
Well, exactly what you said. All the young people. We know that that verdict on George Floyd's murder, that the young people are the ones that made it happen with all of the protests and the marches that they were doing. We know that the young people are also very, very concerned about global warming. We have seen the inspiration of the young woman Greta from Germany, who got kind of put her life out there and said her young life that she was going to dedicate that to global warming. We see that Jane Fonda has taken a big giant step with her Friday fire drills that she's had. She's had over 1 million people that have watched her fire drill Fridays, and she continues to have those. And Jane has said that she's going to dedicate the rest of her life and all of her resources to do whatever she can to promote the issue of global warming, so that we can save our planet. So I think we have, and of course, people like Governor Jerry Brown. So we have some, I think, very inspirational leaders of the older generation. But the younger generation, this is a subject that is very dear to their hearts, and we do see that they are out there marching. I think, as I mentioned before, that I think that message has been a little you might say, sidelined for the moment because of the issues of policing and the deaths of black and brown people at the hands of police. But it is definitely there. We just have to build on that, and then for the folks that are not really engaged at this moment, we just have to say, hey, we got to put your apathy aside. We all got to get together. We've got to start working. This is something that is going to affect every single one of us, and something that it's an issue that we could not put it on the back burner. We've got to put it on the front burner. We've got to start working on it.
Yeah, thank you for that. I feel like the younger generation, as I'm sporting my gray hair here, is really, what makes me go every day now. And I love to see the connection that you bring with young people throughout the state, those that are aware of your history and those that might be seeing you for the first time. And I just want to thank you for the inspiration that you bring to me and others to really kind of reach out beyond the traditional issues that we might be working on and think bigger and think at the same time what we can do on the ground to make life better for people and connect them to the environment in a meaningful way. And so I thank you for the work that you are doing with your foundation. You're an inspiration to me, and I think so many out there in just tackling the complex challenges before us and getting results. And I'm energized by your work and appreciate that so much.
And I think at the national level, everybody now we're all working on Senate Bill 1, which is For the People Act. And the reason that this is important because when we think again of global warming, it's not just about California or the San Joaquin Valley. It's a national and a global issue. So when we think of the For the People Act, which is an act that is right now being considered in the U.S. Senate, and this is about protecting people's right to vote and stopping the voter suppression, and also about doing some public campaign reforms so that you don't have to be a millionaire to get elected to our legislatures or to Congress. And the reason this is important because unless we can get progressive people elected to our state legislatures and to our Congress, people like Governor Jerry Brown and many of our legislators who are committed, to the climate change issue. So while we might say, well, that's not California, but you know what? If it's Georgia or Texas or some of these other states, we need to elect Congress people there that will support us on these issues. So I just want to say to everyone, I know here in California we're okay. We've got great people like Senator Padilla, who's going to be speaking also, but we've got to be able to contact our friends and our relatives or people that we know in other states and ask them, please email your senator and tell them to vote for S1 so we can get people in other states to come on board and to fight the issues of global warming. I like to quote Michael Moore, who said, when we wake up in the morning, what do? We wash our face, we brush our teeth, and then we call our senator.
I like that. That's a good call to action for all of us. Thank you. That's also a great segue to we have California's newest senator, Senator Alex Padilla, joining us from Washington, and he has just run off the Senate floor, literally. Senator Padilla, welcome. Thank you for making time to join us on this day before Earth Day, thinking about the determining decade of the action that we really need to tackle in addressing climate change and other environmental challenges. Yeah, thank you for making time. Can you share a bit about what Earth Day means what does Earth Day mean for you today?
So happy Earth Day Eve to you as well. Good to be with you, Jay, and I appreciate Dolores Huerta. Now I know why I get so many phone calls each day. Pick up your face, brush your teeth, call your senator. More calls than I've ever had in my life. But I think that the spirit of Earth Day for me and for our family, frankly, because in our family, everything's a family affair, really stems from some of my earliest experiences in childhood. My father, an immigrant to the United States, as most people know, his hometown originally is Puerto Vallarta. A lot of people have been there, vacation there. So I think the proximity to the ocean has meant not just love of seafood, but respect for the health of the ocean. So critical to the lifestyle there, of course, the food there, etc. And so I think part of it is genetic. And another story that I share pretty often, both with adults and children, when in non-COVID environments, when we're able to visit schools and try to inspire kids. I talk about one of the first times I was able to go to the beach as a kid. It was one of my uncles, my dad's brother, that took some of the cousins to the beach for the day. And at the end of the day, had fun in the water, and we brought some snacks, of course, to get through the day. When it was time to clean up, gather our stuff, pick up the towels, pick up the blankets, food wrappers, we thought we were done when my uncle started pointing to, what about that piece of paper? What about that wrapper? Pick this up, pick that up, as little kids would typically do. Say, but that's not mine. And he was very firm in imparting with us an important lesson. He says, it doesn't matter. Our job is to leave it better than we found it. And, over the years, whether it's visiting beaches, hiking in the mountains, anywhere else we've done for recreation, we carry that with us. And I just happen to have a career path from my days on the city council to the state senate to even Secretary of State, and now obviously as United States Senator, where I can advance policy and legislation to help leave our planet better than we found it.
Well, that's an inspiring challenge that I think we all just have to meet every single day now. And it's, I can recall working with you in California on the plastic bag ban. And it sounds like that may have been one of the actions early on that you took in the spirit of this effort. And we heard from Alexandra Cousteau earlier about if we don't do anything, by 2050, there will be more plastics than fish in the ocean. And so I wonder, can you share a little bit about your agenda now in Washington and some of the immediate priorities that you're putting to work with regard to the environment?
Sure. I mean, I think in some ways I get to cheat a little bit. We've done so much in the state of California to lead the way nationally that it's not just those ideas, but those proven policies, those policies that have been demonstrated to work and have a positive impact, can also be a foundation for national policy and national action, whether it's in advancing renewable energy mandates or sustainable construction design, smart grid deployment, to improve the efficiency of our electrical grid, and so much more. And that's just more broadly is those who pay a little bit more closer to attention to the Senate know one of the committees I've been appointed to is the Environment and Public Works Committee, trying to follow in the legacy of Senator Harris and Senator Boxer, who at one point chaired the committee as a California senator. And so the reason I mentioned that is there's a lot of talk these days in the news about the coming quote unquote infrastructure package. Right? Yep. We just passed the American Rescue Plan. Now is the American Jobs Plan. What can we do through investing in our nation's infrastructure to do much more than address deferred maintenance? Right. So I'm definitely in the camp of thinking bigger, thinking bolder, thinking more inclusive, how we define infrastructure, and not just address infrastructure for infrastructure's sake, but take a big bite out of the climate challenge. Right. Smart strategic investments in our infrastructure can go a long way in helping reverse the pattern, the trend lines of climate change that we've seen, and we can build on that based on the California experience, water efficiency, electrical efficiency, so much more.
Yeah, I think you've really hit it on the head here. We've really appreciated the responsiveness of you and your staff and thinking about green infrastructure, how we think about how we put the environment to work in addressing the threats of flood and fire and sea level rise together, and appreciate your leadership in helping to push that forward. And I know you introduced legislation yesterday calling for the electrification of buses across the country, again, which has both the benefit of reducing emissions and reducing our reliance on fossil fuels, as well as signing on to the Green New Deal program. Can you tell us a little bit about funding for these measures? Is there hope in the infrastructure package to deliver funding on the ground to really embrace these kind of big picture green infrastructure kinds of thinking that to really help deal with the climate threat?
So, absolutely, and I appreciate you raising that. Yesterday was a big day. I haven't been in the Senate quite 100 days yet, but we're already having big days like yesterday, where we stood at the announcement of the reintroduction of the Green New Deal. Honored to join Senator Markey, Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, and others in that announcement. Proud to be a big part of that, helping advance that in the Senate now. But just more broadly, the power to be able to legislate. And so the bill introduced that we unveiled yesterday would seek to direct sufficient funding to partner with school districts across America to replace diesel school buses with electric buses. We know the technology is there. There've been many school districts in California have already begun the transition. And yet another example of how this job is personal to me. I remember vividly when I was in elementary school, when I was in junior high, that's what we called it before, it's now known as middle school, riding the bus to and from school, and that exhaust, like you'll never forget that smell. But as a policymaker now, we know it's not just good for the environment by making the switch in terms of reducing the environmental impact, the weaning off of fossil fuels, but studies show better learning by kids when their bodies aren't struggling to process that toxic pollution. So it is a win-win-win. Learning improves, through this transition. So it is absolutely a smart investment. In an ideal world, we'll resource the proposal through the infrastructure package. Now, we are having the negotiations of not just how broad to define infrastructure or not, but what the dollar figure is going to be and how we're going to pay for it. I think it's one of the better investments we can fund through the infrastructure package. And our bill is going to, I think, be a key in pushing that specific proposal. Ultimately, if it's a little deficit spending, I think that's okay. Interest rates are still, pretty darn low. Or even better, let's pay for it by redoing and undoing a lot of the unneeded tax breaks that were put in place by the prior administration that was unnecessary relief for large corporations and the most wealthy families in America. I think this would be a much smarter investment to, again, help improve the environment, protect public health, and improve learning.
Well, I think that's a really smart challenge in thinking about how we bring people together to address the urgency of this moment with regard to climate change and what it means for people wherever they live and what it means for nature all around us. And I guess in closing, Senator, I know you have to get back to the Senate floor. Is there a particular challenge beyond Dolores's call to action of engaging your office, and which we are excited to do, and really appreciate the responsiveness of you and your team, and for you taking time out today to join us as we think about Earth Day and what it means? Is there a final call to action that you would leave with us on this day?
Yeah, I think it may be a little bit preaching to the choir here, but just reminding ourselves that everybody can do something. Maybe not everybody can get out to a tree planting event, or not everybody can get out to a beach cleanup day, but everybody can do something. So ask yourself what you can do, not just on Earth Day, but every day, but especially on Earth Day. Take a specific action, document it. We're living the age of, digital media and social media. Catch that selfie, brag about it, post about it. It's amazing, how many things that we can make go viral these days, and what better representation of our value than to take pride in what we're doing to take care of our planet.
Thank you, Senator. I think that is absolutely beautiful and inspiring, and carries us forward with the right energy today to really address these challenges that are with us today. And again, I know you've got a really busy schedule, and I greatly appreciate you finding time to escape the Senate floor and share with us your vision for California. And I wish you all the best in this Earth Week, and we look forward to working with you in Washington in the months and years ahead here. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Continue to stay safe, everybody. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Good. Well, Senator Padilla has a good reminder there that we're not actually beyond these COVID challenges yet. And I want to take a moment to thank all of you for joining us and for embracing these challenges of Earth Day. And I think we really got a good perspective from Governor Brown about his commitment to really understand both the cultural, historic, and natural heritage of the connection to the ground and the peoples that were here before us. I think we learned from Dolores Huerta this feeling of connectedness in our communities, the importance of reaching out to really have empathy and join the needs of others. And we've tried to model that here at the Nature Conservancy in linking protection of safe, clean drinking water with freshwater systems and groundwater systems, and providing a holistic approach to address those water issues and climate challenges before us. And to carry the words of Senator Padilla forward, let's act every day on these challenges. And we at the Nature Conservancy are really excited to be at the forefront of plastics waste reduction efforts in the legislature. We focused on climate and the role of our forests, our natural working lands, our rivers, our meadows, our estuaries, and our oceans, and how we conserve these lands for future generations, and to recognize that these are people challenges. These we need to figure out how we align the values of people and nature together in solving these problems. And I just want to thank all of you on this day before Earth Day and in celebration of the determining decade ahead, and the Nature Conservancy's work to bring practical solutions forward that really address all the challenges of climate change, to our freshwater ecosystems, to the lands around us, whether it's the forests, whether it's through the valleys and to the beaches, and to our ocean ecosystems too. And we do this work together. We are inspired by all of you in doing this work. We hope you've enjoyed taking a moment to reflect on some of the public policy challenges of delivering on what we really need to focus on this Earth Day, which is action to address these challenges before us. And we're then really feeling good about it. Let's set the dialogue. Let's set a tone to be problem solvers together and really make this world a better place. And begin that today and every day, as Senator Padilla noted, by taking action that really shows a difference on the ground, that really moves us to addressing these challenges and ensuring that we don't that we don't pretend that we've figured it out in California and that's just enough. We know we have to do more. And so we're deeply engaged here in California in bringing forward really effective climate policy solutions. We have just done some polling that shows 2/3 of Californians strongly support additional funding for action on climate change. And more than 3/4 of all Californians support the California Global Solutions Act, which California led the way with globally in putting a cap and trade program forward to cap carbon emissions. And it feels so good to be a part of the Nature Conservancy, to be a part of what we are bringing forward in this moment to address climate challenges. And in that context, to recognize that we have to address climate change to protect nature. And I just want to thank all of you out there for your support of the Nature Conservancy's work, for helping us deliver practical solutions that are really working on the ground. And with that, I want to thank you and say Happy Earth Day, and let's all do this together. Thank you.
So for Earth Day, I'd like to invite you to reflect on the condition of our forests and how inextricably linked our own well-being is to forest health. Wildfires are breaking records and breaking hearts. Our old way of doing business is no longer working. We find ourselves in a moment of great transition, with climate change already here and unfortunate past management decisions coming home to roost, now is the time to act.
When I think of Earth Day, I think of my children. I think of them breathing fresh air and swimming in clean waters without plastics. We all have to do our bit. Happy Earth Day.